छोटे सेव मेहरा जी छा गए।
बचा लेना।
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
What's weighing on Nitin Gadkari's mind? Speaking at a function in Nagpur last week, he lamented how politics has become 100% sattakaran or power centric. He said, I think a lot about when I should quit politics. There are more things worth doing in life than politics. This has surprised many. Of course, he's not going anywhere. I mean, as I think. He's just 65 and he has at least 10 years to go in politics, even if one were to go by the RSS and the BJP's unwritten code about not holding any official post after 75. So, why is he thinking aloud about sannyas from politics? That's the question I'm going to deal with in this episode of Politically Correct. Let me take you back about 12 years to the BJP National Council meeting in Indore in February 2010. It was about 8 weeks after Gadkari had become the youngest party president at 52. That National Council meeting is remembered for many things. First, it was his austerity measures at the meeting. You know, there were around 4,400 party delegates. They were made to stay in tents. Snake charmers were deployed to guard against snakes slithering inside. Mosquito repellents were in high demand. Of course, there were VIP tents also with ACs, TVs and sofas. As commodes were installed in a hurry, they were quite shaky. So some reporters had a gala time as leaders would visit them in the hotel rooms to use the facilities. Inconveniences aside, Gadkari, the newly elected BJP president, was a big hit. An ordinary party worker who once stuck posters and wrote graffitis in Nagpur, he had risen to occupy the top post in the party. At a cultural evening on the concluding day, Gadkari enthralled the audience, singing Manna Dey's, जिंदगी कैसे है पहेली हाय रे, कभी तो हंसाए कभी रुलाए. Loosely translated, it's like life is such a riddle. Sometimes it makes you laugh and sometimes it makes you cry. Some of Gadkari's colleagues remembered his song last week when Gadkari made that remark in Nagpur, thinking aloud whether he should quit politics. That's also a paheli or riddle. Sannyas from politics at 65? Why would such thoughts come to him? After all, he has a weighty portfolio. He is the Minister of Road Transport and Highways. I mean, only June, he set a new target, new goal of constructing 60 kilometers of highways per day, saying that, even during the pandemic, it was 38 kilometers per day. I mean, he is one of the very few, if not the only, cabinet ministers in the Modi government who actually run their ministries their ways, taking decisions on their own. The rest are happy waiting for and carrying out PMO's instructions. Gadkari holds his own. Let me share with you what one transport ministry bureaucrat had told me a long time back. Once the then road transport secretary, he received a call from higher ups to convey to the minister that he should stop his weekend visits to Nagpur, which also happens to be the RSS headquarters. The secretary passed on the unpleasant task, in fact, to a joint secretary. So when the JS conveyed it to Gadkari, he apparently laughed and said, "Tell whoever has sent this message that Nagpur is my constituency. Thousands of people wait for me to get their work done. I won't disappoint them." And he continued his weekly visits to Nagpur, ignoring that message from the higher ups or from the powers that be. His equation with the RSS top brass remains strong even in the Narendra Modi era. It has actually kept him politically afloat, even after being denied a second term as BJP president in 2013 due to charges of financial impropriety, which by the way have remained unproven till today. As for his angst about the politics of Sattakaran or power-centric politics, he couldn't have been serious unless he was taking a jibe at the current dispensation in the BJP. All of us know there is some unease in the RSS about power-driven politics that the BJP is playing today. But the fact is there are ideals and there are realities. In an ideal world, probably, power would be a means for politicians or parties to implement their vision for the country, for the people. No matter how much you want to do for the people and how sincere you are, if you don't have power, you can't do anything. That's the reality. So the current BJP leadership would probably tell Gadkari, fine, point taken, let's move on. Besides, let me remind you of just one instance to prove why we can't really take Nitin Gadkari's words about Sattakaran so seriously. After all, it was his late night arrival in Panji that had turned the table on the Congress in Goa after the opposition had emerged as the opposition party had emerged as the single largest party. The BJP had secured only 13 MLA in the 40-member assembly. Gadkari arrives in a chartered flight late at night, and by next day, stage was set for the BJP to form the government. Now I don't have to tell what Gadkari would have done to get those smaller parties to commit support to the BJP. So when he laments about the politics of Sattakaran, we really have to take it with a pinch of salt. But coming to the main point again, why is he talking about quitting politics? As I said, he is one of the very few ministers in the Modi government who run their ministries their way. As BJP president, he used to say that his party needed to increase its vote share by 10% to come to power. You recall in 2009, the party's vote share was about 19%. Well, today the BJP's vote share has doubled. It's over 37%. He must be thankful to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for that. There is a catch here though. Gadkari is a man of ideas and purposes. You must have heard a lot of things. Electrical highway between Delhi and Mumbai, hovercraft from Delhi to Agra's Taj Mahal, seaplanes, using hair to produce amino acid, storage of countries' urine to end fertilizer imports, and so on and so forth. He keeps coming up with ideas. In this context, let me share with you an interesting anecdote. Sometime in 2015, you may recall, he had disclosed that he used his urine to water the plants at his bungalow in Delhi. It's homemade fertilizer, as Gadkari had said. Sometime later, I happened to visit him. There were two prominent TV personalities waiting in his drawing room. As we were waiting, we happened to talk about his disclosure about that use of urine to water the plants. Precisely at that point, we were served some home-cooked refreshments. It had been a long time, but I think it was poha. As we started eating, I joked that some ingredients must have come from the same homegrown plants. Oh man, you should have watched the expressions on my fellow journalists' faces. I won't tell you any further. Talking about Gadkari being a man of ideas, the fact is he does not seem to find many takers for his ideas in the current dispensation. For a minister who was called Spider-Man by BJP MP Tapir Garo for creating a web of roads across India, Gadkari's graph has been falling progressively. He might not be the most popular leader in the Modi regime, but his efficiency as an administrator was at least acknowledged in Modi 1.0. So in 2014, he was given the portfolio of shipping along with the road transport and highways. In 2017, he was also given Uma Bharati's portfolios of water resources, river development and Ganga rejuvenation. In fact, for a few months in 2014, for about 6 months after Gopinath Munde's tragic accident, he had also been given the additional portfolios of rural development and Panchayati Raj. So even though Gadkari was kept out of the coveted Cabinet Committee on Security or CCS, he was a heavyweight minister in Modi 1.0. Those close to him in fact got an impression that he was probably angling for an overarching infrastructure ministry, including the railways, roads, shipping and probably more. Things have totally changed now. Gadkari had been shedding weight in Modi 2.0. In May 2019, while he retained the road transport and highways ministry, He was divested of shipping and water resources, river development and Ganga rejuvenation. In fact, in place of those portfolios, he was given MSME, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, along with road transport and highways. In fact, in July last year, when the Prime Minister carried out a reshuffle of his cabinet, Gadkari was divested of the MSME portfolio too. He is now left with only road transport and highways. There was a time when Gadkari used to participate a lot in cabinet deliberations. As we are told, he rarely intervenes nowadays. He is kind of nonchalant. Gadkari would often tell reporters that he was an outsider in Delhi. When he came here in December 2009, he became the party president. Then 2010 February, you had this National Council meeting, and he used to interact with journalists, and there he would say that he is an outsider. And so much so that, when he landed in Delhi on a winter evening in 2009, he wasn't even carrying a sweater. As we learnt later, a party colleague then took him out for shopping and bought him a sweater. He brought out a lot of change after coming to Delhi. Until his arrival in Delhi, party leaders would wind up by, all meetings, everything by 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Gadkari started late night meetings. And that reminds me, talking about late night meetings, A.K. Antony, the senior Congress leader, he was a minister in the UPA government, defense minister. So he used to tell us, I think some point in the central hall he was talking to us, and then he was telling, this Delhi is strange. So people call me at 11 o'clock at night, and after there's some chat, they say, okay, fine, we'll talk at night. And, for somebody like Antony who would go to sleep at 10 p.m. and getting a call at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. and being told that, okay, fine, we'll talk later at night. You know who we are talking about. It must have been Ahmed Patel or probably Fernandez. And those were the people who worked through the night. Gadkari actually brought that culture of late night meetings in the BJP. But, he was a great host. And BJP leaders would actually joke that he fed them so much in late evenings that they would be sleepy, wanting to go home. So they would say just yes to whatever Gadkari proposed. Anyway, when he became BJP president, the so-called D4 or Delhi 4 actually ruled the roost. D4 members, Arun Jaitley, Sushma Swaraj, Venkaiah Naidu and Anand Kumar. Three of them are no more. Venkaiah Naidu, as you know, like his vice presidential term is going to be over, so his political innings is as good as over. The moment he became the vice president, he was out of politics. Now I don't really think he is taking a plunge back into politics now. So that D4 is virtually over. That D4 was a major challenge for an outsider like Gadkari when he came to Delhi. There is no D4 today. But Gadkari remains an outsider even in the Modi-Shah dispensation. As the BJP president, he had promoted many leaders, say Dharmendra Pradhan, Smriti Irani. Today, all of them are keeping a safe distance from him. Gadkari is a member of the BJP parliamentary board, the party's top decision-making body. But the meetings of the board are a mere formality to put a stamp on what PM Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah have already decided. For instance, the BJP toppled the Uddhav Thackeray-led government in Maharashtra and then installed rebel Shiv Sainik, Eknath Shinde as the CM. Gadkari had to just watch the entire political drama from the sidelines. He wasn't involved at all. It was happening in his home state. Modi and Shah are promoting a new generation of leaders, and so many veterans are apprehensive. You can call it a fear of the unknown, uncertainty about their political future. Their fears may not be entirely misplaced though. Modi inducted 19 cabinet ministers from the BJP in 2014. Apart from PM Modi, there were 23 cabinet ministers, 4 of whom were from allies, parties which were part of the NDA. 19 were there from the BJP. So the PM inducts 19 cabinet ministers in 2014. four of them, say Gopinath Munde, Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley and Anand Kumar, I mean, they have passed away. Venkaiah Naidu was first elevated as Vice President, and then 3 others were sent to Raj Bhavan. As it is, only 4 of those 19 survive in Modi's cabinet today. And these 4 are Nitin Gadkari, Rajnath Singh, the 2 former BJP presidents, then Narendra Singh Tomar and Smriti Irani. Just 4 of them. Overall, 69 ministers have left the Modi government since 2014. And my colleague had done all the calculations. He had gone through all the numbers, calculating who left, who stayed. That my colleague Unnati Sharma, you may actually get the link of her story here as you watch this. So 69 ministers have left the Modi government since 2014. Most are fading into oblivion. Say somebody like Uma Bharti, she is still in headlines throwing stones at liquor shops in Madhya Pradesh. But others are waiting anxiously for rehabilitation and they have just been forgotten. And these include many former high-profile ministers. I'll just name a few of them. Ravi Shankar, Prakash Javadekar, Harsh Vardhan, Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, Suresh Prabhu, Mahesh Sharma. You don't really hear anything about them anymore in the party. I mean, they're all waiting for rehabilitation. They are unlikely to make it back into the cabinet. Those who have managed to survive in the cabinet since 2014, I mean, they have to keep their fingers crossed. If there are just 4 surviving from 2014 cabinet today, one can only imagine how many of them will find a place in Modi 3.0 cabinet. Unless the opposition party's hope of a miracle comes true, as it looks like there will be a Modi 3.0. And if that happens, out of these 4 surviving members, you don't know how many will make it in Modi 3.0 cabinet. In a nutshell, Modi and Shah are in the process of carrying out a wholesale change in the government, as also in the party. That's probably making party veterans philosophical. But then Nitin Gadkari should remember, right after Nitin Gadkari's song in 2010 Indore National Council meeting, it was Shiva Singh Chauhan who was singing. So what I'm saying is Gadkari should remember what Chauhan sang then, that evening in Indore. O nadiya chale chale re dhara, chanda chale chale re tara, tujhko chalna hoga. That's all from me in this episode of Politically Correct. Thanks for watching.